Why would anyone donate one of their major organs to a total stranger?
If my kids needed this and I couldn't do it, would I hope that somebody out there would make that same decision? Absolutely.
Will this be a gift of life for this young boy? Their story on the eve of the operation begins Monday on the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Rummage through the attics and cellars and storage sheds on Swan's Island, Maine, and you're likely to find all sorts of stuff left behind by centuries of fishermen. Much of it is junk, but some of it is really good junk. The former often gets sold to tourists. The latter may wind up in the Swan's Island Lobster and Marine Museum. Tim Sample visited there and sends us this postcard from Maine.
The history of Maine is tied to the ocean, always has been, since the Indians fished these waters. And things haven't changed all that much since then. The explorer Champlain was the first European to note that the fishing out here on Swan's Island, Maine is pretty good. Now, that was back in 1604. And Swan's Islanders have been fishing these waters ever since. The maritime history of this place is a fascinating story, and no one knows it or tells it better than Ted and Galen Turner.
You got the metal barrels here, which very shortly won't be used anymore because of the rust. And here you can see the plastic barrels being replaced.
The Turner brothers trace their heritage back for generations on Swan's Island. And, except for Ted's stint in Vietnam, they've never lived anywhere else. They're proud of their island's maritime past. And for more than a decade now, they've been saving it in bits and pieces.
Now this one is more or less the last of lobster traps before they went to wire traps. We just wanted to try to keep one of everything. And it isn't that anything in this is valuable on the dollar cents, but in some ways it's priceless. It depends on how you look at it.
To some folks, the boxes of junk cluttering up the attics and barns around here are really only fit for the dump, or maybe to sell to summer folks at a yard sale. But to the Turner brothers, these are priceless antiquities, missing pieces of the puzzle of this island's seafaring past. For the last 10 years, the Turners' treasure has been piling up in their yards, in their kitchens, and in the garage. But it's finally found a home. The Swan's Island Lobster and Marine Museum is full of the stuff of Maine's fishing history. Stuff most historians might not take notice of. Knives and nets, and rusty running lights, hooks and hook straighteners, and a handmade woolen mitten that a fisherman once wore. It has a history too, and the Turner brothers want it preserved.
I don't like to handle this any more than I have to.
Some, like an early navigation book by Nathaniel Bowditch, any curator would prize. Or an old sextant on loan from one of the islanders, which neither Ted nor Galen knows how to use yet.
This is a beautiful, beautiful thing. When you kind of touch some of this stuff, you can't go back to those days. But this has been there, and if it could just talk, and it would make me sound so boring if this thing could tell you all the places it's been and all the things it's seen. This is my baby. I wanted this thing for years.
Once in a while, they pay for something, like this old cannon from the mackerel boat A.E. Herrick. They bought it from Captain Herrick's granddaughter for $2,000 and a rowboat they built.
Yeah, ain't she pretty?
Yeah, beautiful. Some things they acquire in other ways.
And of course, this came from the dump. I remember finding it. It was one of the old sailmakers.
Who else would recognize an old sailmaker's thimble?
The old sailmakers. We hide it all over the place for these babies.
Yeah, we didn't think we'd ever see one of these.
Or something called nippers, which were used to protect fishermen's hands from the bite of their fishing lines. A few things, like this homemade contraption for separating cod liver oil, they pulled up from the bottom of the sea. Their motto, drag it home, because you ain't going to see it again.
This was used around the turn of the century, and what it was for is a pressure cooker for cod liver oil. It held a piece in history, and you know, when they got done with it, they just threw it overboard. He went and found it and said, hey, we ought to go
Take a roll.
get this thing home and you know, see what we got. And
The brothers collect old photographs, too, and stories from the people on the island.
Well, I used to be a fisherman myself for 20 years, and I've walked the decks of the boats, and I find it kind of fascinating. And to hear the old stories from the old people, how they did it, the old traps, gives us a chance to see the older people and you know, relive the stories, and in a way just, you know, leave this place for a while and journey back in time.
Whatever they can't borrow or trade for, find in a barn, drag home from the dump, or drag up from the ocean bottom, they make.
Like this one here, they would call a double ender, because the stern is more or less the same as the bow.
Galen has reproduced the shipbuilder's half models he found in attics and shops around the island. The brothers have done all their research and collecting without the benefit of a lot of money, special training, or college educations.
This is one of the old, what they call a one-lunger, or a hit-and-miss engine.
So far, they haven't run up against a challenge they couldn't meet.
I think it would still run, but she's wicked tired.
Crank her
And we had all
The next challenge is getting people to take the ferry out of Bass Harbor to come and visit their museum. Now, if you can't make it this year, I wouldn't worry about it too much. There'll probably be a whole lot more stuff here next year.
You even got one of the old-fashioned...
These are one of the plastic pockets.
Yeah. Bait pocket, bait bag.
Next on Sunday morning, the FBI and the Branch Davidians.
Can anything beat the excitement